Hi everybody, and welcome to Plato-Senpai, where we philosophically analyze anime and maybe teach you something along the way. When it comes to anime, I always prefer subs over dubs, but for no other anime do I so vehemently insist on the sub than for Mirai Nikki, or The Future Diary, if for no other reason than this. The sheer derangement in Yuno Gasai's voice makes me violently shudder, no matter how many times I watch the series. All the creepiness aside, I have found the series packed with philosophical themes rife for examination. Over the next few videos, let's explore some of these themes in depth, calling upon some great minds to help us along the way. Warning, there are spoilers in these videos, so if you intend to watch the show or are currently watching it, this particular series might not be for you. In this series, we will explore 6 particular themes that occur throughout the show in varying degrees. First, alternate universes. Second, the nature of God. Third, the so-called butterfly effect. Fourth, the question of free will. Fifth, causality, necessity, and contingency. And sixth, the question of love. In this episode, we will talk about the first of these themes, alternate universes. If you have watched Mirai Nikki all the way through, you may have been struck by a number of things. The violence, the tragedy, and the sheer psychological vertigo induced by every twist and turn that tricks you into trusting a character one moment and completely losing faith in them the next. But nothing blows one's mind as much as the twist that is revealed just towards the very end, which is that everyone is living in a second version of the universe, one in which the first Yuno, who won the game the first time, has used her newly acquired god powers to reverse time to save Yuki from death. However, instead of going back in time, she has merely created a second universe or timeline, which leaves her with a little problem. There are now 2 of her. As a result, she kills the second version of herself and replaces her. This explains why she is already so good in combat and so callous to killing other people. She has already gone through it once and won. But once Yuki discovers this dirty little secret, Murmur steps in and preemptively crowns Yuno as the heir to Deus Ex Machina, thus granting her godlike powers. But at a crucial moment, a challenger appears. The once thought dead Minene Uryu, the terrorist chick, who was also endowed with godlike powers by Deus as a contingency plan in case Murmur was guilty of foul play. At this moment, Yuno and Murmur turn back time again, which, if they haven't learned their lesson from the first time, instead creates a third timeline. As Yuki and Minene follow them into the apparent past, a battle ensues. Some secret promises are fulfilled, more people die, and Yuki becomes God before everything is set back to normal. At least normal in the third universe, I guess. The show addresses the question of alternate universes or timelines fairly easily by adding the divine or superpower element to it. If demigod Yuno wills it, then it happens. But barring a divine explanation, or psychopathic survival games for that matter, could alternate universes really be possible? Are there in fact possible worlds? To this, the 18th century German philosopher Gottfried Leibniz seemed to say, well, yes, but actually no. Leibniz developed the idea of possible worlds when contemplating the nature of God. If God, as the definition holds, is omniscient, omnipotent, and omnibenevolent, then he would have to create the best of all possible worlds. Considering that God, in Leibniz's view, did not have to create the world but freely did so, he would have to have created the best world possible. This means that the world is contingent. In other words, the world did not really have to exist at all. there were other worlds less good than the one in which we actually live, such as a world without things like cotton candy, coffee, or Mirai Nikki. These worlds are possible worlds, meaning they could have existed even though they don't. But the catch is this: because God is omnibenevolent, that means he is all good, he could not have created a world any less good than was possible. In other words, if God chose to create, he would have to create the best of all possible worlds. That means that this world could not have been created better than it was, which seems to imply necessity, which is something we'll get to in a much later video. But because the world could not have been created, it retains its contingency. Now you might be asking, this is all well and good for the world in which we live, but what about those other possible worlds? Why can't those exist alongside this world in which we do live? The answer is that if it is God who creates the world, and if God is omnipotent, that means all-powerful, and omnibenevolent, that means all good, then he would have to create no world but this one. And if he chose to create another world, and by world in this case we mean universe or timeline or however you want to phrase that, then it would have to be a duplicate of the actually existing one. The problem seems to be that of the presence of evil in the world, which makes things a lot less good than it could be for humans. But take into consideration that most of the evil in the world results from human choices, which is something that God, being omniscient, took into account when creating the best of all possible worlds. If this world is the best of all possible worlds, it means that it is the one with the least evil, which takes into account the evil inherent in and caused by human actions, or certain human actions, I guess. If God had created things even slightly more different, it would have allowed for more evil actions within the world, actions which God would have already known were going to happen, since he is, after all, omniscient. Now, this also begs the question: why would God create human beings with free will if he knows they are going to use that free will to commit evil deeds? The simple answer is that the goodness of free will is greater than the evil caused by abusing free will. And conversely, the goodness of free will is so great that the world would not be the best of all possible worlds if humans were not free to act as they please. In short, a world with free human beings freely doing evil deeds is better than a world of human beings without free will forcibly doing only good deeds. That's how good free will really is, and why it is a necessary component to the best of all possible worlds. So which of the three worlds in Mirai Nikki is the best of all possible worlds? If we follow Leibniz's train of thought, it has to be the first world, the one created and governed by Deus Ex Machina, since he is the god of time and space. And if God is omnibenevolent and freely chooses to create, it must be the best of all possible worlds. The second world, created by Yuno, seems like it cannot possibly be the best of all possible worlds, since the most evil happens in that one, taking into account that everyone is equally as free in the second world as they are in the first and third. But the third world, also created by Yuno, but profoundly changed by Yukiteru's actions influencing Yuno's, is a world in which the future diaries are never created and the survival games never take place, meaning that this world has ostensibly the least evil of all three, all other things being equal. But keep in mind that even though Yuno, a mortal human, brought this third world into existence, she did so with divine powers, as though she were God, even though Yuno eventually kills herself and Yukiteru then technically wins the game and succeeds Deus Ex Machina as God. So if we assume that the second world could not possibly be the best of all possible worlds, then it must be the first or third. But all of this assumes quite a bit about God, specifically that he is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnibenevolent. And none of these seem to apply to Deus Ex Machina. The reasons why will be explained in the next video, in which we will discuss the nature of God. If you found this video informative, you know the rules of YouTube etiquette. like the video and subscribe. I want to thank all of you for watching my first YouTube video, and I hope you learn just as much from the next one. Stick around.